My wife cheated on me with our neighbor, then mysteriously claimed she was pregnant with his child, and now she's fiercely fighting over our $750, $0 house, and $250, $0 in savings. I just found out she secretly transferred everything into her sister's name, and I'm starting to suspect it's all part of a brutal revenge plot. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, to be honest. My wife Jenna seemed perfect, beautiful, smart, ambitious. We'd been married for 8 years and I genuinely believed we had something solid. Until I didn't. Until I started noticing things that didn't add up, little cracks in the perfect facade I had built in my mind. And then, one night, everything exploded in a way I couldn't have predicted. It all started about 2 months ago, when Jenna began acting strangely. She'd come home later than usual, always with some vague excuse about work or hanging out with friends. But her phone became her new obsession. She'd keep it in her purse all day, and when she was alone, she'd be on it for hours. I'd catch her sneaking around, hiding messages or deleting things. Nothing concrete, just enough to make me suspicious. I told myself I was overthinking it, that maybe she was just stressed, but deep down I knew something was wrong. Then I started noticing her behavior around the house changing. She'd be more irritable, snapping at me over small things. She'd also start avoiding intimacy. No sex, no cuddling, nothing. We used to be very affectionate, but lately she'd brush me off, saying she was tired or just not in the mood. It wasn't just that. I'd see her glance at her phone when I wasn't looking, quickly hide it when I entered the room. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. One afternoon, I decided to do a little digging. I'd been suspicious for weeks, and I couldn't stand the idea of her hiding something from me anymore. I waited until she left for work, then quietly accessed her email on her laptop, something I never would done if I'd trusted her completely. And that's when I saw it, a string of messages between her and our neighbor Mark. It wasn't just friendly banter. It was flirty, suggestive, and clearly more than just neighborly talk. They'd been meeting up, exchanging late-night texts, talking about getting away together. My heart sank. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't believe it. My wife, the woman I loved, was cheating on me with our neighbor. And it wasn't just a one-time thing. The messages indicated they'd been seeing each other for months. I couldn't sleep that night. I felt a mixture of rage, betrayal, and disbelief. How could she do this to me? To us? I had trusted her completely, and all along she'd been lying, sneaking around, hiding her affair right under my nose. The next day I confronted her. I couldn't keep it inside anymore. I told Jenna I knew about the affair, that I'd seen the messages, and I wanted an explanation. Her reaction was classic Jenna. She started crying, denying everything at first, then spinning some bullshit about how I was overreacting, that Mark was just a friend, and that I was paranoid. She told me I was imagining things, that I was insecure, that she loved me and would never cheat. But I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. The evidence was right there on her email, and her reaction only made me more certain she was lying. She said I was being unreasonable, that I was paranoid, and that I was ruining everything over some stupid messages. She claimed I was accusing her of something she hadn't done, that I was imagining things. I could see the anger behind her tears, but it didn't matter. I knew she was lying. I could feel it in my bones. I felt a cold rush of disappointment and a kind of numbness settle in. I'd loved her, trusted her, and now everything was shattered. The woman I thought I knew had been cheating on me for months, and I hadn't even suspected a thing until I found proof. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what I'd learned. My mind kept circling back to the betrayal, the lies, the stolen moments she'd shared with Mark. I wondered how long this had been going on, how many nights she'd been sneaking out or hiding her phone. I felt humiliated, angry, and incredibly hurt. How could she do this to me? After everything we'd been through, after all the promises and plans. I kept asking myself if I'd missed the signs, if I'd failed somehow, or if she was just a bitchy, manipulative woman who'd been planning this all along. And then there was the money. Our house, our savings, everything I'd worked so hard for. Jenna had always been obsessed with money, always pushing for more, never satisfied. Now I was starting to realize that her greed wasn't just about material things. It might be about control, revenge, or just her own twisted sense of entitlement. The house we bought together was worth about $750, $0, and we had around $250, $0 in savings. But here's the kicker. She'd secretly transferred everything into her sister's name just a few days before I found out. I found out because I'd been checking our bank accounts, and suddenly the accounts were frozen, all the money gone. She'd done it so I wouldn't have access. She was planning something, I could feel it. I don't think I slept that entire night. When morning came, I knew I had to do something. I had to confront her again, but this time with a plan. I needed to understand her motives, figure out how deep this betrayal went, and most of all, protect what was mine. The house, the savings, everything. I was starting to suspect this wasn't just about infidelity. It was about revenge, about her taking everything I had left and leaving me with nothing. And I was furious. Furious at her, at Mark, at the whole twisted situation. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I couldn't let her get away with this. Not without a fight. After I discovered everything, her affair, the money transfer, her lies, I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. The shock, the anger, the disbelief, it all hit me at once. I knew I couldn't just sit there and do nothing. Jenna had been so manipulative, so cunning, I had to get ahead of her plans if I wanted to keep anything of what was ours. But honestly, I was also scared. Scared of what she might do next, scared that I'd lose everything I worked for. Still, I knew I couldn't let her get away with it without a fight. The first thing I did was get a lawyer. I didn't want to jump to any rash decisions, but I had to protect myself. I explained everything. Her affair with Mark, the transfer of the house and savings into her sister's name, and her frantic denial when I confronted her. The lawyer listened carefully, taking notes, then told me I had a strong case to contest the transfer and to seek an annulment or separation, depending on what I wanted. He also warned me that Jenna might try to twist things, spin lies, or even accuse me of something I didn't do. But I knew the truth and I had evidence. Next, I started digging around more. I hired a private investigator, something I never thought I'd do, but I needed proof of her betrayal beyond her words. Over the next couple of weeks, I watched her actions closely. I set up hidden cameras around the house, checked her phone records, monitored her movements. And sure enough, the pie came back with more evidence. Jenna and Mark had been meeting at a nearby hotel, sometimes more than once a week, for sex. They'd been sneaking around in broad daylight, and she'd even lied about where she was going on certain days. It was all out in the open now, undeniable. Meanwhile, I also found out that Jenna had been trying to manipulate our financial situation even further. I uncovered emails between her and her sister where she'd been planning to sell the house or transfer ownership to his name so I wouldn't have any claim. She'd been trying to set up a way to leave me with nothing. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a betrayal of trust. It was a calculated revenge scheme. Jenna was angry, bitter, and I couldn't believe I was saying this. She was planning to leave me completely broke. The emotional toll was enormous. I felt crushed, betrayed, and angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. How did I miss all the signs? How could I have been so blind? I was furious at her for doing this to me, but I was also hurt, deeply hurt, and I felt like I was losing my mind. I kept replaying moments in my head trying to find where I went wrong, but I realized that blaming myself wouldn't help. I had to focus on fixing what I could, protecting myself, and stopping her from taking everything I had left. One night, I finally confronted her again. I told Jenna I knew about her affair, the transfer of the house, the secret accounts, everything. I laid out the evidence. I'd gathered photos of her and Mark, the emails, the bank records. Her face turned bright red with anger when I told her I'd hired a pie. She started yelling, calling me paranoid, controlling, insecure. She told me I was imagining things, that Mark was just a friend, that I was jealous and overreacting. But I didn't buy into her lies anymore. I could see her true face, cold, calculating, manipulative. She then claimed she was pregnant out of nowhere. Said it was Mark's child and that she was going to keep it. I was stunned. I asked her for proof and she threw out some vague ultrasound appointment dates, but I knew better. I knew she was lying. She'd been so good at spinning stories I didn't trust a word she said anymore. It was all just another part of her game, trying to keep me off balance, make me doubt myself, maybe even buy her more time. Honestly, I felt like I was living in a nightmare. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was capable of deception, betrayal, and now, outright lies about her pregnancy. And I knew she was trying to manipulate me, to guilt-trip me into accepting her version of reality. But I refused. I told her I was done listening to her lies, that I was going to take control of the situation. I contacted my lawyer again, told him to start the legal process to freeze her accounts, challenge the transfer, and get a court order to secure the house and savings. I also made plans to get full custody of the house, and I was prepared to fight for every penny I deserved. The hardest part was facing her again after everything. Seeing her bitchy smirk, that look in her eyes that said she thought she was always one step ahead. But I wasn't going to let her win. I was done being the passive husband. I was ready to fight, to stand my ground, and to protect what was mine, no matter how ugly it got. I knew she'd try to spin her lies even further, try to turn friends and family against me, but I had enough evidence to back me up. I was determined to come out of this with some shred of dignity intact. I still don't know exactly how it will end, but I do know that I won't let her take everything without a fight. This isn't just about money or a house anymore. It's about my pride, my sanity, and the little bit of trust I have left in myself. I've learned that some women are capable of incredible deception, and that sometimes the people you trust the most can turn out to be your biggest enemies. But I also learned that under all the chaos, I still have a voice, and I can still stand up for myself. I just hope I'm strong enough to see this through. After I had all the evidence laid out and my lawyer started working on the legal front, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief because I finally knew the extent of Jenna's betrayal, and dread because I realized the fight was just beginning. She wasn't going to go down without a fight, and I had a sinking feeling she was planning to do everything she could to ruin me in the process. Jenna's reaction to my confrontation was predictable. She doubled down on her lies. She started accusing me of spying on her, of invading her privacy, and even claimed I was unstable for accusing her of such things. She threw in that pregnant lie again, insisting she was carrying Mark's child and that I should just accept it. She said I was controlling, jealous, and that I was destroying our marriage over some stupid affair. But I knew better. I knew she was trying to manipulate me, trying to turn the situation around so I'd look like the bad guy. Meanwhile, her attitude changed. She became more aggressive, more bitchy, almost like she was trying to provoke me into losing my temper. She'd make snide comments about how I'd never be able to prove anything, how I was just a jealous fool, and how she'd take everything I cared about just to punish me. It was clear she was trying to escalate the situation, maybe to scare me into backing off or to push me into giving her what she wanted: control, money, the house. And then came the real shocker. Jenna started accusing me of abuse. She claimed I'd been emotionally manipulative and controlling, that I'd been threatening her and that I was the one who was unstable. I couldn't believe it. All I'd done was gather evidence, confront her, and try to protect what was ours. But suddenly she was painting herself as the victim, trying to turn people against me. I was furious. How dare she spin the story that way? It was her who had been cheating, lying, secretly transferring money, and now she was trying to rewrite history. The whole thing started spiraling out of control. I found out she'd been talking to her sister behind my back, planning how to get rid of me legally and financially. Was in on it. She helped Jenna transfer the house into her name, and they'd been scheming to sell it or rent it out, leaving me with nothing. I uncovered emails where Jenna was telling to cover her tracks and prepare for the worst, which made it clear she was planning to leave me completely broke. I felt sick. The woman I loved was now a criminal, and I was caught in the middle. Things escalated even more when Jenna started trying to turn my friends and family against me. She told her sister to start spreading rumors that I was emotionally unstable, that I'd been abusive, that I was dangerous. I heard from some of our mutual friends that Jenna had been calling me crazy and possessive, trying to paint me as the villain. It was a classic smear campaign, designed to make me look like the bad guy so she could walk away with everything, money, the house, and her reputation intact. I felt betrayed on every level by her lies, and by the people I thought cared about me. Throughout all this chaos, I kept my cool. I knew I had to. The last thing I wanted was to give her any reason to paint me as the bad guy in court or to the authorities. I kept meticulous records, saved all her messages, emails, and evidence of her transfer of assets. I even hired a forensic accountant to trace her financial moves. I wasn't just fighting for the house or the money. I was fighting for my reputation, my dignity, and my future. I knew Jenna was dangerous when she was cornered. She'd do whatever it took to win, even if it meant lying, cheating, or hurting others. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt like I was living in a war zone, constantly on edge, wondering what she'd do next. I'd wake up every morning with a knot in my stomach, knowing that Jenna's next move could be anything, from filing false accusations to disappearing with the money she'd stolen. I was angry at her for all the betrayal, but I was also terrified, because I knew she was capable of even worse. I kept reminding myself that I had to stay strong, that I had to keep fighting for what was rightfully mine, even if it meant tearing through her web of lies. One day, I found out she'd been secretly meeting with a lawyer of her own, probably trying to finalize her plans to cut me out completely. She was trying to get a court order to freeze the accounts I still had access to, and I knew she was planning to claim she was pregnant to get additional sympathy and leverage. I couldn't believe how far she was willing to go. All this, while she kept up her bitchy, manipulative attitude, trying to make me look like the bad guy. It was like she was playing a game, and I was the pawn she wanted to crush. I realized I had to act fast. I contacted my lawyer again, pushed for urgent court hearings, and filed for an emergency injunction to prevent her from transferring or selling the house. I also started gathering witnesses, mutual friends, neighbors, anyone who could testify to her lies and manipulations. I knew that this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about stopping her from destroying what little stability I had left. I was at war with her, and I was determined not to lose everything. The truth was on my side, and I was going to fight for it, no matter how dirty she played. The legal battle started moving fast after I filed for the injunction. Jenna, of course, responded with her usual bitchy attitude, trying to spin everything to her advantage. She accused me of being controlling and emotionally abusive, claiming I was trying to manipulate her into staying. She even went as far as threatening to take me to court for custody of the house and the unborn child, which she continued to insist was Mark's. The more she lied, the more I realized how deep her deception went. Her reaction to the court filings was classic Jenna. She threw a fit. She started calling me names, saying I was obsessed, paranoid, and jealous. She insisted she was the victim and that I was trying to ruin her life. She claimed that I'd been emotionally abusive for years and that I was just trying to control her. I could see through her crocodile tears and fake outrage. She was just trying to manipulate the situation to get her way. But I had enough evidence, screenshots, bank records, witness statements, to back up every claim I made. Meanwhile, she ramped up her efforts to turn the people around me against me. Jenna contacted some of my friends, telling them I'd been violent and unstable, trying to paint herself as the innocent victim. I later found out she'd even hired a private investigator of her own to gather dirt on me, hoping to use it against me in court. It was clear she was prepared to go to any lengths to win, even if it meant destroying my reputation and lying about everything. I felt like I was caught in a war I couldn't see the end of. All the while, her sister was helping her scheme, had transferred the house into Jenna's name right before all this started, but Jenna had secretly arranged for to hold on to it temporarily, kept assuring her that she'd help her get everything and that they'd be able to leave me with nothing. I uncovered emails where Jenna was congratulating on covering her tracks and making sure I'd never get a cent. It hit me hard. This wasn't just a betrayal of trust. It was a full-blown conspiracy to take everything I owned. What made everything worse was Jenna's continued insistence that she was pregnant. She kept throwing out ultrasound photos, insisting that Mark was the father and that I should accept the truth. I knew she was lying, but it didn't stop her from trying to guilt-trip me with her fake pregnancy. She'd cry, say she was doing this for her future, and accuse me of not caring about their child. I refused to buy into it. I demanded a paternity test, and I knew that once I got one, her lies would fall apart. But even that was just another chess move in her game. She was trying to buy time and sympathy. At this point, I was emotionally drained. Every day felt like a battle. I was angry at her, furious that she'd betrayed me so badly, but I was also scared. Scared of losing everything I'd worked for, scared she'd hurt me or worse. I'd never thought I'd be in a situation where my wife would lie, cheat, and scheme so openly. It was like she was a different person, cold, calculating, ruthless. I'd always believed in honesty and loyalty, but Jenna had shown me that sometimes people are capable of anything when they're cornered or angry. I started taking steps to protect myself financially. I hired a forensic accountant to make sure I could trace every dollar Jenna and had transferred or hidden. I also contacted the bank to freeze some of her accounts, just in case she tried to drain any more money. I was preparing for what I knew would be a long fight, one that could go to court, where I'd have to prove her lies, her manipulations, and her illegal transfers. It was exhausting, but I knew I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her destroy me without a fight. One night after a particularly stressful day in court, I sat alone in my apartment, feeling the weight of everything. I thought about how this all started, just a regular marriage, a woman I loved, a life I thought was stable. And now I was fighting to keep what was rightfully mine against a woman who had turned into a stranger. I realized I'd been naive, trusting her too much, believing she was the woman I married. But I also knew I couldn't let her win. No matter how dirty she played, I had to stay focused, gather my evidence, and prepare for the final showdown. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about my dignity, my future, and ending her game before she could do any more damage. The court hearings came faster than I expected, and Jenna's attitude only grew more aggressive. She showed up with her bitchy smirk, trying to look innocent but failing miserably. She insisted she was pregnant, claiming the ultrasound was proof, and that the house and savings belonged to her because of her sacrifice and what she's been through. She spun the lies so convincingly that even some of her friends started to believe her, or at least doubted my side. It was infuriating to see her manipulate everyone around her, but I kept my composure. My lawyer presented all the evidence I had collected, the email exchanges, the bank transfers, the witness testimonies, and the proof of her secret accounts. I had the forensic accountant testify as well, explaining how Jenna had transferred the house into Jenna's name right before all this started, and how they'd been planning to sell or rent it out. The judge listened carefully, and I could see the wheels turning in his head. I knew Jenna was trying to pull every trick she could, but I had enough proof to counter her lies. Then Jenna pulled out her ace. She claimed I'd been abusive, that I'd threatened her, and that I was dangerous. She started crying fake tears, speaking in a trembling voice about how I'd lost control and hurt her feelings. I was stunned. I had never raised my voice at her, never laid a finger on her, yet she was turning the tables, trying to make me look like the villain. Her words were a calculated attempt to sway the court, and I could see right through her manipulative tactics. I responded calmly, presenting my side with facts. I explained how I'd only been gathering evidence to protect myself, how I'd been betrayed and lied to, and how her accusations were false. I pointed out her previous attempts to manipulate friends and family, and how she'd been planning to leave me with nothing. I also brought up her ongoing affair with Mark, showing the messages and proof I'd collected. I told the court that her claims of abuse were baseless. They were just another way to distract from her own betrayals. The most shocking moment came when Jenna, clearly desperate, started insisting that she was pregnant and that the child was Mark's. She demanded a paternity test, which I immediately agreed to. I had new DNA tests done, and the results confirmed what I already knew: Mark was not the father. Jenna's face turned pale, and her bitchy smirk disappeared for the first time. That was the moment I realized how much she'd been lying all along, trying to control the narrative. The truth was finally coming out. After the court hearing, I felt a mixture of relief and exhaustion. The judge ruled in my favor regarding the house and the savings. She ordered the house to stay in my name, and the bank accounts to be unfrozen so I could access the money. Jenna was furious, screaming and crying outside the courtroom, but I knew I'd won a crucial battle. Still, I was wary. She was unpredictable, and I knew she'd try to find another way to hurt me. In the days that followed, Jenna's behavior became even more hostile. She started spreading rumors about me, claiming I was violent and unstable. She contacted some of my friends, trying to turn them against me, again accusing me of abuse. I kept my distance, knowing it was all part of her plan to destroy my reputation. I also hired a new lawyer to prepare for any further legal moves she might make, like trying to claim custody of the child or attempting to transfer assets again. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding my life. I started working on my emotional healing, seeing a counselor to help process the betrayal. I realized that Jenna's revenge wasn't just about money or the house. It was about control, about punishing me for discovering her lies. I also learned that I had to be smarter, more cautious, because she was capable of playing dirty and doing whatever it took to win. I started to see her for what she truly was, a manipulative, vindictive woman who'd do anything to get what she wanted. Looking back, I can honestly say I've learned a lot from this nightmare. I've learned that trust can be broken in an instant, that people you love can turn out to be your worst enemies, and that sometimes fighting for what's right means going through hell. I also learned that protecting yourself isn't just about legal measures or evidence. It's about mental strength, resilience, and knowing when to stand your ground. I don't think I'll ever fully trust Jenna again, but I do know that I'll never let her manipulate me like that again. It's a harsh lesson, but one I needed. And as I move forward, I'm determined to rebuild what I can: my life, my dignity, my sense of security. I just hope that anyone reading this who's going through something similar realizes that even in the darkest moments, there's a way out. Stay strong, stay smart, and don't let the bastards win. In the aftermath of everything, I've come to realize just how deeply betrayal can cut, but also how resilient you can become when you refuse to let it destroy you. Jenna's manipulations, her lies, her revenge schemes, they all tried to break me, but I refused to give her that power. Securing the house, reclaiming the savings, and clearing my name in court gave me a sense of victory, but the emotional scars are still there. Trust, once shattered, is hard to rebuild, and I know I'll carry the weight of this betrayal for a long time. Looking back, I see how her greed and bitterness fueled her every move. She was never really the woman I thought I knew. Beneath her bitchy exterior was someone willing to do anything: cheat, lie, manipulate, to get what she wanted. The affair with Mark was just the tip of the iceberg. The real damage was her plan to steal everything I had, to leave me with nothing. And honestly, I was naive to believe she was capable of true loyalty. The most important lesson I've learned is that you cannot trust blindly. People can hide their true nature behind a pretty face or a false smile. The key is to stay vigilant, protect yourself, and gather evidence before confronting the chaos. I also learned that legal action is sometimes the only way to get justice. When someone is willing to lie, cheat, and manipulate, you need to be prepared to fight back with facts and persistence. Jenna's false pregnancy and her lies about Mark's paternity were just her last-ditch efforts to control the narrative. When the DNA tests proved otherwise, her entire scheme fell apart. That was the moment I knew I had won, not just because I'd kept the house or the money, but because I'd finally seen through her manipulations. She's a bitter woman, and I have no doubt she'll continue to try and hurt me in any way she can, but I won't let her. As I write this, I feel a strange sense of closure. I've been through hell, but I've come out the other side stronger and more aware. I want anyone reading this who might be in a similar situation to remember: don't let betrayal define you. Stand your ground, protect what's yours, and don't be afraid to fight for the truth. Sometimes, the truth is the only thing that can set you free. And in the end, I know I'll be okay, better than okay, because I've learned what real resilience looks like. I hope this story serves as a warning and a reminder: Trust is fragile, but strength lies in facing reality head-on, no matter how brutal it may be. Keep your head up, stay vigilant, and never let anyone take away what you've worked so hard for. Life can throw brutal surprises, but you have the power to decide how you respond. And I choose to move forward, wiser and more cautious, knowing that even in betrayal, there's a lesson worth learning.